Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Quantum to Go communication training. We want to make sure that you and your audience are comfortable interacting with each other and make sure you can get your points across while your audience feels engaged and you can build connections within the short time frame that you'll have. I'm Nicole Schrody. I am a public engagement program manager at APS. My background is in high school education, mostly biology and physics, as well as physics curriculum design.
And I'm Emily Edwards. I'm at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and my background is in physics, quantum information science, and science communication.
Great. Since this is an APS sponsored event, we expect everyone to follow the APS Code of Conduct, which is listed here. You can also find it on the APS meetings policies website. So feel free to look that over at your own time and get in contact with us if you have any questions.
Yeah, so thanks, Nicole. So some of you may have participated in outreach to school-aged children and teachers prior to Quantum to Go, but this guidance is really meant to help everyone, including those who are experienced at this, make the most of this virtual visit and increase the likelihood that students will engage with you and the topic of quantum information science and engineering. It's always important to remember that when it comes to quantum concepts and careers, students and teachers have very little experience in scaffolding to prepare them for your visit. And so we'll walk through some tips, but these are really to help you engage with this group. And of course, we would love feedback afterwards on your experiences to help refine even this training. Kids generally get excited if you are excited about what you're talking about. So they're really good sensors for this. So, just try to relax and be authentic. And it's also common for this age group to wonder about connections of math and science to their lives in the future. And this is kind of normal, given that their exposures to physics and science are often historical in context when they're learning them at this level. And so we really suggest that you convey the impact of the field, where you're working, and that this is an active area of exploration and what you're excited about, and that it has many unsolved problems. I mean, after all, that's why you're in a career. So we want you to remember middle and high school science is often the first place that students get exposed to more physical and mathematical sciences. So really encourage them to ask questions. Let them know that they don't have to wait until college to think about this area of science. And it's okay that they maybe haven't heard of it, but that they can really start to learn about it now. They don't have to wait till they're much older or advanced in education. We also asked prior to this educators what their students would like to know with regards to quantum. And one of the main topics they sent was related to career paths. So, we'll talk about maybe the order of how you could go over these different topics, but, make sure to integrate ideas about how you got into this career, not just what you're doing day to day. And most importantly, of course, have fun. Next slide, which I think I'm going to pass it to Nicole for the next one.
Awesome, thank you. So the next couple of slides will be giving you tips on how to get to know your audience a little bit better. So in your matching email, you were provided with some discussion points to bring up with your matched educator. Some of these on this slide are the same, but there are some added to enhance your conversation and allow you to get to know your audience a little bit better. Before you present to the students, it's important to talk with your matched teacher about what the class looks like, demographics, the scope of the class. Is it a high-level AP class or just a general level middle school physical science class? Please make sure to talk to the educator about any disability, gender, or language considerations for anyone in the room, the teacher, students, and yourself included. This one's important. How would you like the students to address you to make sure that they know that going in. Would you like your honorific, professor, first name, last name, etc. When you meet with the teacher, try and find out what they're learning before and what they might learn after the visit. If you find out what they're learning after the visit, make sure that you're not giving anything away in your talk, because discovery for the students is really how they learn. And if we don't want to spoil the discovery for anyone. What time frame are you working with? How long will you leave for questions, etc.? Important that at the end of this presentation, you'll get a link to the customizable slides that you can use for your presentation. Make sure that you're sharing those with the teacher. And if you feel comfortable having the teacher edit, comment, or even co-create those with you. These are in the matching email that you got. You know, these are great so that you can see where the students are, what they know and what they don't know, and what questions they have. So try and get these answered through email from the teacher beforehand. And really just make the students feel welcome. All questions are good questions at this point. So again, with connecting with your students, it's important that you make connections with your students so that they have kind of an emotional connection to what you're saying, as Emily was saying earlier. Really value their ideas. I like to think of students, obviously you as a quantum professional know more about quantum than they do because you're older, you've studied this extensively. But they have the ability to know as much as we do through study and through their own experiences. So with that is avoid savior mentality. We're not here to fix them or to impact their interests if they don't have them. It can be problematic to position ourselves as the giver of this knowledge, as I was saying, showing science as closed or done or historical, as Emily said earlier. It's still growing, and they have the ability to tap into that as well. We're not the only ones who know this or can know this. We've just studied it more extensively. Be open, ask questions, try to get to know the students. Remember that students are from all different backgrounds and preparation levels. Just because one student in the room might have a lot of facts and knowledge about quantum, maybe they did a camp or a museum visit, but if one student in the room knows that, that doesn't mean that all students in the room have the same level of preparation or knowledge. So, you know, if one student brings some facts, you know, try and put that in context for the other students that might not have those. And it's not always visible or obvious what these differences are. So same here. Some more tips with interacting with students to really build rapport. This was actually brought to our attention from one of our participants in our Physicists to Go session last fall. When students are asking questions, it was helpful for the physicist if the student approached the computer and didn't ask the question from the back of the classroom. It just helped the scientist hear the question better so that they could address it. So you might want to talk to the teacher or the educator about that beforehand. If the students know they will have to do that beforehand, they can prepare for it. And not just be frozen in the moment to think that they have to approach a computer with, you know, a highly trained physicist or scientist in front of them. Use we whenever possible. We are going to explore quantum science today. Invite them into the conversation. Not I am going to explain science to you today for reasons that we've talked about already. Try and sprinkle questions throughout your presentation. As you're speaking, give them something to mull over or to think over. And when you're asking those questions, make sure you give some wait time. There's always the kid who shoots their hand up right at the beginning. And if you call on that student first, the other students kind of check out and don't think about the answer. So give some wait time, 1 or 2 or 3 hands go up, and then you can start to call on people. Even the act of just thinking about it, even if you don't call on them or the teacher, is important. Encourage the students to interact with each other during your presentation. If you ask a question, it's always good for the students to talk to each other about it first, use their kid language to grapple with the answer before saying it out loud. So maybe ask a question, say, talk to your partner, talk to your neighbor about it. If the teachers have whiteboards for them to take notes or ask their questions, just that kind of audio visual kinesthetic thing can really help as well. And if they can talk out their answers beforehand with a peer, they often have more confidence and have better answers moving forward for you. And I will pass it over to Emily.
Yeah, so next we're going to talk a little bit about tips for communicating with the public. And, keeping in mind that, we talked about for students, but we also, this involves teachers, and a lot of, if we can emphasize that a lot of people really just don't know what this field is. So if you've ever attended a science communication training prior to this one, you might have already seen this, that you really need to meet your audience where they are at. And so this diagram here is a good way to think about how we communicate as researchers to each other versus how we communicate in more informal or formal settings with the public. Or maybe how we as the public, when we're a member of the public, get talked to about a subject we don't actually understand. So you may actually recognize this one that's labeled public as something that you've experienced when you're learning something new from as a non-expert. So both of these styles work in terms of conveying information, but we really want you to focus on the one labeled public. So you really have to work your way into the supporting details, and the background is going to be quite different actually on both of these sides. So to capture people's attention, start with the bottom line in a way that is relevant to your audience. In this case, it's going to be students and teachers. And so we talked in the beginning a little bit about how to connect with students, thinking about how they talking about the applications, answering the questions they've asked, giving time for them to think. And so even when you're working your way through the bottom line, kind of following the tips that Nicole articulated, I think is really important. And then you kind of work your way to the supporting details as you have built up a little bit of audience engagement, of why they should care, why they're even listening to you, and giving them, feeding them the details. And you might even kind of walk through this inverted or walk through this triangle a few times throughout your talk as you go from topic to topic. Really the key, what I think about when I think about science communication to this audience is it's really not a lecture. Even if you've given a public lecture is kind of probably setting you up for the wrong tone. Think of it more of a story. We're really in a storytelling to people who may have never heard the word quantum before. We often do storytelling in research, but this is a storytelling, and in fact, a good paper is also a story, but this is more storytelling in the informal way and in a conversational way that you don't normally do as an active researcher. So, I think just remembering this, that it's, your frame of mind is more like reading a book and trying to engage them in this book that is the story of quantum information science in your career. So next up is in order to be successful at telling your story, you really have to avoid jargon. And sometimes it's hard, even, in my own experience as a science communicator, it's really hard to remember what is the jargon that happens in quantum. And so think very carefully. You might have to talk to the teacher in advance to understand what terms your age group that you're going to be interacting with might be familiar with. So you really should connect with them at first, like Nicole said, and really find out what kind of background knowledge would they have. And then remember that, students might speak different languages, and just really err on the side of caution for this. You should students might not even know the word, like sometimes the word phrase quantum system. We use the word quantum system a lot. That's a really good example of one that students, when they hear the word quantum coupled with the word system, they may not know what system is, but quantum might throw them off. And so just really think carefully about how much jargon is important to get your message across. And then maybe let's go to the next slide. Yeah. Okay. So some typical jargon in quantum can be found. I mean, you know what it is, but go to this glossary to really emphasize like words you might think people know, they don't actually know. Definitely use this as a guide for jargon that you should define. And I'm not like, I really, our hope is that students eventually hear the word quantum and are not like scared off by the jargon associated with it. But in order to get us to that point, you really need to define words. Other good examples besides quantum system is wave particle duality. Physicists particularly use this a lot. I know this program is not just for physicists, but I will say that physicists use this a lot as a canonical example of where quantum science is. Most people do not know what that is. So if you're going to use that, try to explain what you mean by duality, particle, and wave, and then putting it together. An example of jargon that students will be familiar with at middle grade and high school is atom. You can rest assured that if you say the word atom, people will understand it. But if you use the word atomic, they might associate it with other things that you didn't intend. So thinking about, again, like working your way towards what they might understand by starting with words they understand. So another good example is condensed matter. Most students will not know what this word is, but they know what materials are. And so, you can get them to where you need to be if you want to say those things. If you want to say quantum computer, rather say computers that use, properties of quantum mechanics, and then kind of go into that. They won't know quantum mechanics, but if you start with a word they know, you can get them to the jargon and where you want them to be to engage in that conversation. And you can ask students also, like to Nicole's point, like you can ask people during the conversation about, like, you can even ask, like, ask them to tell words that come to mind, for instance, when they hear the word quantum. And that might give you a good level set of where you want to put your start the story and start the conversation. Next slide. So one of the ways that you can be successful in science communication is to practice. And so in this case, if you can find people close in age, or find a teacher, especially teachers are really good at level setting because they know their students best. But if you can, also give your talk practice on a younger audience. That will really tell you if you're at the right level. Okay, I think this is now passing to Nicole.
Okay, great. We have a resource here as well. This is from the Step Up curriculum. If you haven't heard of that, the website is down here. And these are just some discussion topics, especially for topics where students might not have a lot of comfort. So taking them out of their comfort zone is okay, as long as we reassure them with some of the tips that Emily and I have discussed today. So just taking a look at these and knowing these are the goals of your discussion. As Emily said, thinking of it as a story and also a discussion between you and your audience. So those are our tips. I wanted to walk you through some of the slides that you'll be working with. There is a link to this in the captions for the YouTube, as well as there's QR codes that I'll show you and links as well. So here is the slide template that you will be receiving. The beginning of the slides is the same, whether you're doing elementary school, middle school, high school, or college. The high school and college version has a few more slides that you'll go into that I'll touch on. And I'll tell you where the middle and elementary school one ends. As Emily talked about before, we're really building our quantum story, or your quantum story. So here are some storytelling techniques. We'll put all of the links and this presentation in the captions for the YouTube video. So really talking about who you were at their age. How did you first get into STEM or science or math or even quantum? Bonus points for pictures of yourself at that age. They will love those. I would say pictures for elementary and middle school is required. They will not be able to read the slides as quickly as maybe we're going through, and a picture can really connect them to what you're saying right away. What were your hobbies? What groups were you a part of? You know, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, STEM clubs, camps, things that can help them understand how to get where you are. When you reach out to the teacher with those preliminary questions, maybe take the answers to those and build a definition for what the students think quantum is. Even quoting some of them would be great. Maybe finding a short video that resonates with students' definition. We have some resources at the end of this presentation, but let the students voice what the students have told you about what their definition of quantum is first. And then from there, you can mold it into your definition of quantum, touching on the similarities between the two, you know, kind of saying, you're almost there. Here's just a couple things I would add to my definition to really bring them into the conversation. The next slide is a few places where they might find quantum in the real world. Feel free to edit this to include your specialty, an area of expertise. All of these are linked to resources for you and the teacher. You know, if you don't know how photosynthesis relates to quantum, you can direct the teacher and the students to some of these links to help them understand that. But feel free to edit this as you see fit to where you think science, quantum science meets the real world. Next, you'll talk about your career, your job. Pictures are great here, even if you don't think they're super interesting. A picture of your office building, your lab, your desk, your coworkers will really connect students to what it looks like to work where you work. A video of you doing something or having a discussion with someone would be great. And then really focusing on what problem you're solving with your job, connecting it to the fact that this is a growing and dynamic field that isn't, you know, quote unquote, done yet or discovered, and really inviting them to know that when they have a career in however many years, there'll still be a lot of those problems to solve. Next, touching on how you got here. Again, the teachers, the clubs, the outreach programs that really got you there. That's a great place to start for the elementary and middle school kids. For high school, you can talk about your training, your college, your graduate. It might not resonate with elementary school kids to talk about, you know, a PhD program. They're just so far away from it. Really talking about how your path changed over time, what caused those forks in the road, and what made you decide to go towards quantum, dispelling myths, talking about your pitfalls and difficulties along the way, challenges. Students love that. They are challenged every day and they like to know other people are as well. So that'll really help connect you. What excites you? Emily talked about this in the beginning. Really getting excited will show them how they can get excited. So, you know, modifying these as you see fit. This is where the slides stop for elementary and middle school. Their, attention span is not as much and they don't have as much experience. But for the high school students, and the college students, we begin to talk about how the US is really pushing towards quantum curriculum and is supporting companies to invest in quantum science. Here are prominent companies. Again, feel free to change this and put your company in here. Prominent companies that they might be familiar with that are have known quantum science efforts. This one talking about degrees needed to pursue quantum science. This one is animated quite a bit to really show them what to focus on. We wanted to show them that many of these jobs you need only an associate's degree, and even more you can have even with a bachelor's degree. Obviously graduate as well, but we don't want to put that barrier for them before they even go to college. And then again, this one is animated as well, top 13 degrees in the quantum industry, showing them that there are roles like physics, but also computer science, and even, this is showing that there are jobs for associates and bachelor's degrees as well. Skills that they will need or can have to go into quantum. Great. So, and then this is something you should talk to the teacher about. If there is maybe 5 minutes of content, we don't want to make the focus of this about quantum content, but if this is a class where students are already exploring quantum content, and the teacher wants you to touch on a couple things, really talk with the teacher and make sure you're getting it at the right level. And then your question and answer session, which I'm sure you will all include. So that is the information we have. I just want to share again the slide with the links to these presentations so that you can have them on your own. So let me do that. Okay, so here are your slide templates. Again, these are linked in the YouTube caption as well. The high school and post-secondary presentation is here. The elementary and middle school one is here. Feel free to freeze it on this screen, use the QR codes, but also they are linked, so you can just click on the link in the caption. I will put this back up in a second, but I wanted to show you. Thank you so much for your time, and we're excited to hear about your visits.